Well, we're back here again, chat. It's the holiday season, new console launch, and what else is going on?
Man, look, there are Xbox Series X's coming out tomorrow, and I know I'm not going to get them.
Yeah.
I'm going to try, but
Well, by the time people hear this, it won't be tomorrow. It'll be some other time.
It'll have already happened. So to everyone watching right now, I'm sorry you didn't get your Xbox or PlayStation.
Yeah.
Sorry. Try again next arbitrary time they decide to put it out.
I don't know, because according to Sony CEO Jim Ryan, there are no more PlayStation 5s. They are completely sold out, like legitimately out of stock, 100%. And they have to wait for the next manufacturing group or whatever process works.
That's insane.
It is crazy to think that, right?
Why?
Like, it's absurd to think that, especially me being a Sony fanboy who was saying Xbox will probably outsell PlayStation this time around. I'm like super shocked, completely baffled. Did not expect it at all.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, going back to an argument we had earlier, way earlier, was I was convinced the Xbox Series X would not sell out.
Yeah, you were. That's right. I do remember that.
I was like,
you were convinced it wasn't going to sell out.
Nah, people don't go crazy for it. Wait, never mind. I guess they did.
It does remain to be seen. And this is one of those moments where, like, I wish I could talk to the person when I'm reading an article and just say this very briefly. Just be like, hey, guys, just curious. But one of the things that's really important to take in consideration, especially if you haven't gotten a new console yet, most of those sales have gone to scalpers. Right, like there's a group in Europe that is currently holding 3,500 PS5s in stock. That means that they have more stock than most national retailers. That is outrageous. So, like, how does that impact things? Because I don't know how many people have worked in retail before, but I worked at an unnamed video game retail store once upon a time. And we would, every console generation, we get the scalpers that come in day one. Somehow they manage to buy a train load of systems. And then on day 30 of that month, or day 30 from that purchase date, we have a train load of returns that come in.
You want to know something that's actually pretty true? Mm-hmm. And I've had a recent confirming yesterday, because our other favorite electronic superstore, that one's doing their big Black Friday sale. And they're marking down Xbox Series X and One controllers to 40. The controllers that just came out are 40.
Wow.
And here's the other thing, though. There's already used ones, too.
Wow.
The only possible way I can think is that those are part of the series of people who return them, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure where the used controls would come from, but that would sound about right, because you can't open the console. That's the key to returning these things for the scalpers. They can't open them. Right, but it doesn't matter to them because they're just here to make a sale, so it's not to make a difference. So I don't know where the used controls came from. Like, do you think it's possible people are trading in controls already?
I don't know how they got used ones that quickly.
Yeah, that sounds kind of crazy.
Available. And one actually I put in my cart and then ended up out of my cart and I had to put a different one in.
Yeah.
Eventually I decided to spend just the extra money and get it brand new.
Yeah, you might as well get it brand new, especially
$40. Yeah.
Right. With it being on sale is crazy. Now, another question that I have, and this might, the retailers might hate me for this one, but I've never worked at a retail chain where, you know, they do like the post-purchase discount agreements where, like, if you buy something and then it goes on sale within the time that you have to return it, you can come in and they'll give you the difference back. You think that'll happen with scalpers? Because that gives them an even larger profit margin now on the remotes, right? Like, remotes are not sold out by any means, so it's not like a drastic area where they're going to see, you know, some benefit or anything.
Won't they be making a net loss? Oh no, a net gain.
They would be getting a gain because they get.
I just bought these controllers.
I just bought these controllers for $60. You marked them down a week later. Well, can I get my $20 back?
That the superstores say no matching Black Friday prices.
Okay,
remember that?
Yeah, back in our day, we did no matching Black Friday prices. But we usually did it no matching Black Friday prices to other stores. If someone came in, at least in the area of the store I was working in, if someone came in and they were like really throwing a fuss about it, we'd be like, hey, look, fine, we'll just give you the difference. I don't care. Just leave.
Just get out of here.
Just go home and enjoy the thing you bought. You clearly are not enjoying the thing you bought because you're looking for better prices on it. Oh man. But you know what else comes alongside this time of year?
Yep.
Or rather this time of generation. It's the top list of all things, right? Like usually every year we have the top 10 games of the year. This time we get the top games of the generation.
This is going to be a difficult discussion.
It is going to be tough.
Especially here at Hard Mode Gamers. Welcome to the first inaugural podcast.
The return of the Hard Mode Gamers podcast.
I'm your host, Kurt Chet Cristal. I also go by Chet Sadface. And like 3 other names, I think.
And I'm hanging out with you guys, and I'm Vega. You can always find me at What Up Vega pretty much anywhere on the web. So today, as you heard, our conversation is going to be primarily focused around the top games of the generation. Now, Chet, I have a question for you.
Yep.
Are we going to take your list and my list and try to create one master list from it? Because I think that'll be hard.
We should. Well, you have your list written down, right?
I have my list written down.
I'm interested to see if we have any that interweaved, you know?
I have a strong feeling that very few people on the internet are going to agree with my list of top 10 games of the generation.
Yeah.
I also strongly believe that you, being an Xbox fanboy, are going to have a couple of PlayStation games on your list. And I have 0 Xbox games on my list.
No, you will not have any Xbox games on your list. But to be fair, neither does the Xbox.
Neither does the Xbox. They just have the third-party games that they have on their list.
Mm.
Yep.
I'm not the best here for their exclusives.
So just to point out a couple of very simple rules or guidelines, we're not going to do this in any particular order because then we'd literally be here forever. So the games are just going to be blasted off based on what we enjoyed. And we'll give you a brief description as to why. The second rule is we probably share a lot of opinions that you guys have, but we also probably don't. So come at me, bro.
Oh, yeah. Come at us. I'm going to start.
Where do we begin, chat?
Well, I know you and me had some runners-up before we got to the top 10 because it is hard to pick them all.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would love to start with my runner-ups real quick.
Yep.
And this is the one area where there might be an Xbox game.
All right, let's hear it.
There might be 2 of them, actually.
What?
2 Xbox games in my runner-up list.
All right, so what are you doing for the runner-up list? Let's go through them individually and talk a bit about them.
Yep, individually. So the first part of my runners-up list covers a category of games that is near and dear to my heart, but I could never genuinely put any of these games in a top 10 list for anything unless it's specifically that category. And it is the fighting game genre.
Yeah.
Right? As much as I would love to throw these games in the list, I'm just like, fighting games don't really make the cut. So here are my top 4 fighting games of the generation.
Oh.
And they are Mortal Kombat X, Injustice 2, Dragon Ball Fighter Z, and surprisingly, Killer Instinct.
Wow. Because you were a big Killer Instinct
I was
fan.
a huge Killer Instinct fan when it was on Super Nintendo. I even liked the 64 version, which I didn't think was great, but it worked. So that was probably the only game for Xbox that I was like, I think I need an Xbox. And then they didn't follow up with anything else that made me kind of go, oh, I could play that on Xbox. So nothing really happened.
It's sad I didn't even know what that game was when I heard the announcement. Like, we're gonna get Killer Instinct exclusive. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah. Killer Instinct.
It's old, right?
It is super old. That game is legitimately from the Super Nintendo era. Like, it was one of the first fighting games, a little bit after Mortal Kombat. And it kind of toned down the violence of Mortal Kombat just by a smidge, but still kept it around the same level. I would say those are probably like the most competitive, like direct games, Mortal Kombat and Killer Instinct.
I know it's funny. You want to know what game I played recently that took a inspiration from Mortal Kombat? Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
They have fatalities in Valhalla?
No. When you assassinate a target, you do get a zoom in of the hidden blade like going through their guts.
Oh, the X-ray feature.
Yeah,
Nice.
but it's the same animation every time.
Oh, come on, Ubisoft. You guys were so damn close.
I mean, the takedown animations are good. I'm talking about once you've killed them, you'll see that stab, and it's like, ooh, viscera. All right, I'm going to digress because I do the ADD thing a lot.
He's been playing a lot of Valhalla lately, so expect that a lot in this podcast.
I'm just going to bring it up for 2 minutes and then forget what I'm doing, and then we go back. I wanted to ask about the fighting games.
Go for it.
So the first one you had...
Mortal Kombat X. The reason I went with Mortal Kombat X over 11, if you guys don't know or don't recall, I am a huge story-based gamer. And I believe Mortal Kombat X had the better narrative between the two, although Mortal Kombat 11 did have slightly better gameplay and a more interesting character roster, especially with all the crazy additions and the skins. Like, it is amazing to me that just under a decade ago, everyone was anti-DLC in every way possible.
Yeah.
And now DLC is literally what keeps the industry alive.
It rules the roost.
Like, we did a complete reversal on that. We just rolled over on our bellies and said, whatever, give it to me.
Fighter passes for that's especially like, wow, they used to add characters and now you're paying to get
Now you're paying
back.
to get the additional characters. It's crazy. And all of the games on my list are completely like awful about that. As much as I love them, they all do it. Dragon Ball FighterZ added like another 12 or so characters post launch.
Yeah.
Killer Instinct added another like 5 or 6 post launch, if I remember correctly. Injustice 2 and Mortal Kombat, they're from the same developer. You know they got tons of them. And Mortal Kombat 11 has been outrageous with the amount of DLC they have. But I love Mortal Kombat 10 because I just felt like it just made things new again. You know, and that's where we are now with the Mortal Kombat series.
I think plot-wise, is Mortal Kombat X like Infinity War and Mortal Kombat 11 is like Endgame?
I see what you did there. It took me a second to think about it. I see what you did there. I would say yes if part of Endgame happened in Infinity War before Infinity War. And then, so like, it's like the beginning of Endgame goes before Infinity War, then Infinity War, and then the rest of Endgame.
Yeah, because like that thing that I tried to follow through and like watch.
Yeah, they did some amazing time hopping. And what's really interesting with that one is like, there was a lot of mega fan service. Like, if you're a fan of Mortal Kombat as a license, as a property, like, you will fall in love with all the stuff in there because they had callbacks to the old animated TV series. They had changes and callbacks to the original movies. Like, they really went to town with it. So it was mind blowing. And they just announced for MK11 the movie pack, the classic movie pack, which lets you dress up Sonya, Johnny Cage, and I believe Jax as their movie costumes.
That's spectacular.
It's amazing.
Nothing like retroactive nostalgia.
Yes.
Just because I don't really think that many people liked it.
I love that movie. As awful as it was, I love it.
You loved it. It's like, Street Fighter.
It's also how I feel about Prince of Persia, the Prince of Persia movie.
Yeah.
That was not that great of a movie, but it was still a good movie.
Prince of Persia was a pretty good Assassin's Creed movie. Way better than Assassin's Creed.
Way better than the Assassin's Creed movie. My God. Wow. I don't know. We're not even going to go down that path right now. And then the last 2 remaining games, I kind of am afraid to mention because they also fall into a category of games that doesn't get a lot of spotlight. Didn't really have a ton of games this generation, which was really surprising. But it's Need for Speed Heat and Forza Horizon 4.
What? These are your run-ups, though, right?
These are my run-ups.
Ooh. It's interesting that you said 4.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Forza, I thought, like, I always think the Forza games are incredible. And same thing with just, you can't really put them in a top 10 general list. Like, sports games, racing games, and fighting games all kind of just go off to the side when we talk about top anything.
That's what I was actually going to say. I had Forza Horizon 4 on my short list.
Yeah?
Yeah, and then when I was like, I had like 25 games on my short list. And I just had to dig through. I was like, listen, Forza Horizon 4 is a really good game, but nothing has changed racing games in a spectacular way recently.
Mm-hmm.
If we were going to talk about like the first Forza Horizon, I think that's where things started to change because Horizon 1 and 2 kind of pushed in that different experience. but we're in this generation now, and I feel
Right.
like it just carried on what they had already started doing.
Exactly. The reason that I put Need for Speed Heat, and Need for Speed Heat almost made my complete top 10 list, simply because it did so much different. Like, it brought back everything that people loved about Need for Speed from the early 2000s into this, and it really became like the solidifying Need for Speed game. So that was my big thing. And the one thing that racing games do for every console generation, which huge shocker to me that there wasn't a new racing game for either console at their launch, but racing games usually show off the power of a console, whether it just be graphical fidelity, processing power, because there's just so much happening at the same time. So the fact that neither console got a launch racing game is mind-blowing. We didn't get a Ridge Racer
No.
for PS5.
Wait, we're gonna get one for PS5?
We didn't get one for PS5. We did get one for PS4. Ridge Racer 7 came out for PS4. No one gave a shit.
Yeah, I didn't know it happened.
Yep.
There's Gran Turismo Sport, but...
Right, Gran Turismo. We're not getting a new Gran Turismo until the beginning of next year, if that. So
Forza Motorsport has changed to... They left the naming thing. Looks like the next Forza Motorsport is going to be Forza Motorsport.
That's it?
Yep.
No number?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
You want to know
good on you, Microsoft. Just keep making shit complicated. Good on you.
I get why. Here's the thing, like 5, 6, and 7. They all added stuff, but a lot of them all had the same thing. It's kind of like sports games, like, because it's based on real track racing. There's only so many times
they
you
can really
repeat
do
the
stuff.
tracks.
Yeah.
So if they simply have all the tracks in their package and bring in new content with it, it stands to justify that it would be a game that you'd have on its own. That's gonna have live servicey stuff.
But I feel like that's the direction that a lot of sports games should go, right? Like they shouldn't. I mean, FIFA 21 was a disaster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like why they should just. And this is going to be crazy because I just made a contrary point, but if they were to release the updated roster as like a $10, $20 add-on pack, I would much prefer that. Right? Like don't sell me a new version of a sport game until you genuinely have something to change.
Yeah.
You know? If you don't have anything major to change, just sell me the roster pack. It's cool. That's fine. And if you don't like and it also gives me the option because if I really want to, I don't have to buy the roster pack. The only thing you get from the roster pack is the new draft kids, right?
Yeah.
Like besides that, I can just move people around myself on the teams and be like, hey, look, it's a new season.
Oh. Shoot, we have a big thing going. I gotta go through my list.
Go for it.
Okay.
Who are your runner-ups?
So my runner-ups all have a very specific description and title. So these are the top 5 games that seem to be made specifically for Chet, who ended up purchasing them all about 3 times per game.
Wow. Why?
Because I liked it that much, and most of these games, they're short, or they didn't do that well, or they went on sale a lot for usually small amounts, and they're a bit closer to the beginning of this generation, I'd say.
Okay.
So, for me, number 5, it would help very much if I had my list in front of me. I mean, I do know them, but now I'm all like sweating bullets. So I'm like, oh man.
Let's
that
fire them off and hear what they are.
All right, so Mankind Divided.
Okay.
That's the first one. It was the sequel to Human Revolution. A lot of people liked that one and didn't like the sequel as much. It underperformed, and it was kind of 1/3 of a game. Yeah, the game ends on a cliffhanger, and not really cliffhanger. You resolve one thing, but like the bad people are still out there.
Gotcha.
And you know what happened to that game, right? They told them to stop developing the game because they have to go make Avengers.
And we know how Avengers worked out.
Yep. So, I would like Eidos to go back to making the sequel now.
Yes.
Because I want to see the other half of that. But I have bought that on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. Usually it was like $5 when I got it on PC, and it was another cheap one that Actually, it was a free game on PlayStation 4, so technically I didn't buy it.
Yeah, it was free. That's right. It was free on PlayStation Plus.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. 10 out of 10 to me, not for anyone else. And that's with all these games. They're 10 out of 10 for me.
No one else.
Mirror's Edge Catalyst. 10 out of 10 for me.
You were a huge Mirror's Edge fan, so I do see that.
Yep.
I do see that.
That game sold 500,000 copies. That was the total.
Huh. You know, I did a quarter of that many streams on Spotify last year.
Yeah. But it makes me suspicious or questioning because they didn't do any DLC, and they were actually quiet about the game after they released it. And they said that they were fine with the sales for Mirror's Edge, and then it was never brought up again. I was like, usually they would report losses and go, oh no, but they just said, yeah, it's whatever. That's a very weird reaction to such a low sale. I wonder if they didn't put a whole lot into it, maybe.
They probably didn't. Like, Mirror's Edge Catalyst, at least from what I played of it, it felt like Mirror's Edge 1. Like, it didn't even feel like visually it got updated. Like, it just felt like Mirror's Edge 1. And it's very possible it was just bigger. It probably was just mad DLC that they were just like, hey, grab all that DLC we never sold and throw it together.
Game has an epic soundtrack. That is another running theme with all these games on the list, is that they all have epic soundtracks. But again, these games aren't best.
Yeah.
But epic soundtrack. You want to know what else has an epic soundtrack? Devil May Cry 5.
What? DMC 5 didn't make your top 10 list?
Yeah.
Wow. Whew. That's intense. I'm going to take it off mine now.
Oh, no. Nah, hold it.
No, it's not on mine.
Okay. It's not on yours.
It's not on mine.
Oh, shit. Well, it's on for me because it was actually the first Devil May Cry I ever played, which is weird. Like, it shows how willing I am to play new things. Because I tried that, loved it, and I'm going back to play the others now.
Yep.
I bought that for Xbox. No, originally PlayStation. And then I got a copy for Xbox from a Redbox when they were getting rid of their games. And I beat it on both of them. I beat Devil May Cry 5 on the second hard difficulty setting on PlayStation. I don't remember what it's called now. It's been a while.
I think it's like Devil Mode or something.
There's something before that. I don't know. Okay, so also, great. Titanfall 2.
I know how hard you worked to get me to play Titanfall 2. And it was not very good.
You don't like shooters, and I've accepted this now.
I love shooters. I just didn't like Titanfall 2.
Did you finish the campaign, or just like...
I couldn't even play it. It was so annoying to me. Like, every part of that game was annoying.
I absolutely loved that campaign. I loved it because the gameplay evolved, and it wasn't just like a 6-hour shoot-a-thon, kind of like you get with the Call of Duty games.
Yeah.
Look, they are good, some of the storylines on them, but it is a lot of shooting, and Titanfall kind of reeled that back in and had you do a lot of different things. There were platforming sections. There were a handful of puzzle sections.
Yeah.
And type maneuvering, things like that. There was also, you have regular boss fights against some of the bigger robots, or titans as they were. And you engage in like this really big ass battle. Like a full war thing. Like, I was really stuck on that part for a while. Because you're like on full scale war with another front, and you're trying to advance forward. And if you kind of don't push through, they keep sending more titans at you.
Got you.
It was good. And I was good at the multi too, and then everyone just stopped playing it.
Yeah.
Like, I was good at that. God damn it. Finally, you'll be surprised that this is not in my top list, but I can't let it. Get Even.
Get Even.
I'm
not surprised it's not in your top 10 list, to be honest. You're literally the only person that talks about that game.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I was really excited for that game before it came out.
Yep.
And then it suffered the one thing that most games nowadays suffer, at least for me, and it ended up in first-person mode.
Yep. Hype kill.
Like, first-person perspective ruins most games for me, which is why a lot of people think I don't play shooters, but I love shooters because shooters are very direct. It is just me aiming for one thing. It's when you put a first-person game and then want me to adventure and explore. Like, it's just too much spinning. Way too much spinning for me.
Even then, with Get Even the way it was such a unique game because it wasn't really a shooter.
Right.
Wasn't really a horror game. Wasn't really a sci-fi thing. And there was stealth and there were some scary parts and you
it was really just
investigate
a mix of everything.
It was one of the most unique games I ever played, and I really liked the plot. So very cool. Lands it for me, but yeah, nobody really played it that much. The only other thing I liked about that one was, of course, I've talked about this endless, and that was the sound design.
Yep.
Perfect sound design.
Yeah, you talk about the sound design all the time.
There's a reason. Because you only mention sound design if it's really good.
Right. Otherwise.
Like, you have to work for that one. Otherwise, it's fine. But it was better. We're going to leave that aside now because we got to get to our tops now.
Our top 10s. All right. So let's fire them off back to back and see where we end up. I guess I can go first. And again, this is in no particular order.
We'll just do one after the other, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. This is in no particular order, but
we'll start with the first one and don't continue.
Yeah. I'm going to start with Dying Light.
Dying Light was not on my list.
Dying Light falls into my top 10 games of the generation because it was one of the few first-person games that I could play at any point, and I was obsessed with this game for months. Like, it is free running, parkour, zombies, action, a couple of scary moments, some intense boss battles. Every fetch quest felt meaningful. You know what I mean? It was like every part of that game felt like it mattered. Like, it really was. I was really stranded and I needed to save the day. Like, I felt it. You know what I'm saying? It was excellent. Excellent game. One of my favorite things about it is absolutely the level design. Just the way that they were able to take a city, or was it a city or an island? I feel like it was an island, but they were able to take this space and give it every aspect of like modern day urban like design and architecture, right? So you had some areas that looked like favelas and ghettos, and then you had some areas that looked like pristine building areas, and everything's falling apart. Everybody you talk to has something going on that actually like impacts every part of the story. And it was great. And the craziest part, I'm not alone in that. They're still making DLC for that game. The most recent piece of DLC for that game came out at the top of this year. It's outrageous.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Because I know about The Following, and that was an
expansion for it.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
So what else are they adding?
They've still been adding costumes. I think the last thing that they added earlier this year, if I remember correctly, was a couple of weapons. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know that earlier this year I hadn't been playing it, but I remember reading an article and going, "What? They're still making stuff for Dying Light?" And that was also one of the games that came out at the turn of the generation. So for it to be still like supported and people still playing it heavily, outrageous.
Well, no other game did what it did, I don't think. The combination of parkour, like you have Mirror's Edge, but Mirror's Edge doesn't have the zombies.
Right.
And you got a good zombie game, and I don't know. I feel like zombies games are kind of lacking lately, but...
They made Dead Island look like garbage.
Yeah. They did absolutely own Dead Island.
Yeah. So...
Dead Island owned itself. Like, look at how good our trailer was. Sorry, our game wasn't that good. You really think it was a trailblazer, and it went above the rest with this?
I think so, because it also, in my opinion, set a precedent that is probably going to be a running theme throughout all the games we talk about today. But it was the idea of not open worlds, right? So you have a open world, but just enough invisible barriers that make sense for you not to traverse certain areas until you're really able and like bodied to do so. You know, versus
the proper
it just
way.
Versus it just being like
you have to come back later when you have the right ability.
Right. And it wasn't so much ability, it was just circumstances, right? So they put scenarios in your way to make it not possible to get through. Versus it just being like, go get this ability, then come back and beat this and you're good. Like it would be like, this whole bus is on fire and you can't go through the tunnel until someone figures out how to put the fire out. but it's not your job to put the fire out. So go do other stuff until someone else does it. Right? Then you come back after a couple missions and you're like, oh, fire's gone. I can go through the tunnel now.
Oh, limit. 1 sec. Just gonna re-roll this one.
Yep.
Resync.
So I think Dying Light, I mean, there's a lot that can be said about it. I spent hours playing that game with a couple of my brothers, and that one's on there for me. If you want to enjoy, especially with the fact that all the new consoles are completely backwards compatible. So if you haven't played Dying Light, you can still play it on the new Xbox or your PS5. So
it's
a trailblazer.
It's installed on my
installed?
Xbox right now. Because I wanted to play it and I had time. You know, they delayed Cyberpunk, but then I caved and got Assassin's Creed Valhalla. All right, let's mark the number of times I mentioned Valhalla in this podcast. We're at 2. All right, so should I give one of my games then?
Yes.
Okay, then. Let's see. This one actually came the quickest to me. This was a game that was originally an exclusive, but now it's not. Nier Automata.
That was exclusive?
Yeah, it was out only on PlayStation first.
Oh.
Then it got announced to Xbox. This is a recurring theme.
Very recurring theme. Very recurring.
Especially for my tops list. Nier Automata. What have you heard about it? Like, besides what I tell you? You know, maybe the 26 endings thing. You
should just get right into it, not ask questions.
Yeah. Nier Automata was quite an experience because it's, you know, a ridiculous Japanese game where you as an android are fighting robots on Earth and there's no people or aliens, but there's supposed to be them. Like the aliens sent down the robots and the humans sent down the androids. And I'm like, aren't those the same thing technically?
Mm-hmm.
I bet that won't come up anytime later. What's really amazing about the game is the dedication that went into that experience. The game does, in fact, have 26 endings, several of them which there's 5 actual endings, and then the rest are all gags. Like, there's a bit where a certain place is on fire, and if you mess around too long before doing it, the game will end and say, oh, she decided to take a stroll instead. Game over. Credits will roll. And I'll send you back to the title screen.
Wow.
For your last save. That game also has some, like, real Kojima tier trolling on it because the beginning of the game is really hard.
Super
and it's
hard.
A manual save game.
Super hard.
So if you die at any point during the beginning, you have to start the entire game over.
In like the first 10 minutes, there's like a opening fight scene that you're like, it feels like a boss fight. And
it is a solid
right
hour of stuff before you get a save. So you better be ready, and you better be prepared to not die.
Outrageous. That's worse than Capcom in its old days.
And so, yeah, you get this story. You go along as these androids fight the robots for humanity. And you play the game, you finish it. And it's got a decent, cool, heartwarming ending. You know, it's like, you feel good. It was satisfying. Yeah. And then the game kind of nudges you when you're done. It's like, hey kid, play it again.
You sure it just didn't do that to you?
No. So you do, and that's where the plot twist comes in, because you have to replay the game as a different character. But you go through most of the same journey. And suddenly, a lot of the context changes because the secondary character, he's a hacker, so he can see more into like what the robots were doing, into their processes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's just has this very like dark contrast to how the game felt the first time you played it. Because he's seeing things that he saw that he didn't share with your main character, 2B.
Wow.
And then that one ends with the same ending.
The same exact ending.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And then the game says, hey, come on, one more.
So you finished this game 3 full times.
You have to. I don't want to spoil it, but the third time you play, um, it's a different opening. And I don't know how much time passed between the two things or what even happened. It's like, I'm not even sure at that point when I was playing. It's like, did the ending happen or did it not happen? But it doesn't have time for that because it sends you into a fight that is immediately one of the hardest fights you'll ever have in the whole game, right at the beginning. Once you finish that fight and make your way out, you get a cutscene, this giant thing pops out, and the title screen appears. Let me say that again. The title screen comes on the third run of the game.
Wow.
And from that point forward, yeah, things get harrowing. It's got all these themes of existential dread on it that you don't think will give you that feeling. But the more you play, it's like just kind of making you feel sad a lot. Because there's so much utter pointlessness to certain things or inevitability. It is an existentially insane experience. And on top of that, it's a great game by Platinum Games. We even know they make great games.
Yeah, Platinum makes incredible games. They don't get the credit that they deserve.
I talked about all the plot, but I forgot to mention, hey, the gameplay is really, really good. It's the sliding scale of the combat I like. I like the really, really fast lightning pace stuff where it's fractions of seconds, triple dodging, all that crazy combos. None of this Dark Souls shenanigans.
I don't know which way to go with this now because I have two incredible segues that I could use. The first one takes us to Detroit. So I'll go with that because Detroit is the type of game that definitely makes you feel the feels. So it's amazing that their subtitle for the game is Become Human because it reaches out to you as a player in a way that really makes you question your moral dignity. You know, there are moments in that game where certain things you do, you're just kind of like, does this make me a bad person if I do this? Like, is that what's supposed to happen? It is similar to Nier in that it has a zillion branching path lines. Like, there are so many different directions you can go and so many different combinations. For those who don't know, you play through Detroit as 3 different characters with intersecting lifelines, right? So, like, their stories all cross paths in some way that can't even really be spoken about without ruining the story overall. So definitely give it a shot. But ultimately, every decision you make can leave you with one less character each time. And you can actually get the end of the game without anyone surviving, which is crazy. Yep. Every decision you make literally impacts the next thing that's going to happen in the game. And I feel like my favorite thing about that is it was one of the first games that I ever played. And I've been playing games a long time. One of like few games where every single choice I made, I felt like mattered. Right?
It really did.
Yeah, it was none of that shenaniganery where it's like
I played it too, so I'm gonna give it. That is absolutely David Cage's best game.
Yes,
hands down.
Yeah, that's without a doubt. David Cage's best game without a doubt.
Yeah,
not at all.
I like that he also showed his work in this one because, like in previous entries, sometimes some of your choices seemed like they were fake.
Yeah.
Whereas when you finish this game now, every time you finish a level, you get a chart.
You get a chart that shows you every decision you made and also shows you the decision. Like, it shows you how many decisions you missed, right? It doesn't tell you what those decisions were. It just shows you, like, there are decision boxes you didn't even encounter, bro.
Yeah, there's sections you could have just missed.
You just miss an entire section of choices.
Like, there's a bit late in the early spots of the game where, you know, you're walking around in the rain with that young girl.
Yes.
And you have to find out shelter. And there's a lot you can do.
There's so much you can miss in there.
To the chase on that one.
Oh,
so
man.
When I got through that, I saw all of these empty things and I'm like, what? I feel like I missed an entire part of this game.
And every mission feels that way. Like, every level you do, by the time you get to the end, or at least for me, every time I finished a level, I felt like I finished an entire game. Like, I finished a whole other video game every time a level finished. With the exception of like 2 or 3 levels that were very cutscene heavy. But outside of that, like, everything mattered. Even the gameplay, as stiff as it was, because I will say that, it was very robotic. But it was definitely a game of the generation. You gotta, if you want to really say you enjoyed this generation or experience this generation to the fullest, gotta play Detroit. And that is a PlayStation exclusive that may end up on PC one day. Who knows?
Maybe. A lot of the other one. Heavy Rain did. I don't know if Beyond Two Souls did.
Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Horizon are the only games you can play on PC from PlayStation right now.
No, you can play Death Stranding.
Oh yeah, and Death Stranding. Completely forgot about that.
Yeah,
and Death
I was
Stranding.
asking about those.
Yeah.
Speaking of Death Stranding, let's go to my second pick.
Death Stranding.
Death Stranding.
The FedEx game.
The FedEx game. The game that nobody knew what it was. And we found out what it was. It was nothing like we thought it would be. And it was still, at the same time, also everything we expected. Because you expect the unexpected when you get a game made by Hideo Kojima.
You always expect the unexpected.
I think you played it for like
no, I haven't even touched it yet.
I
haven't even touched it yet. I've wanted to, but the truth is the last Hideo Kojima game I played was Metal Gear 5, like the last new game.
Yeah.
And I was super disappointed by that. So I was like, if Hideo has gone anywhere near this direction with Death Stranding,
he did.
I'm not interested.
It's very open. So yeah, in this delivery service game, the Norman Reedus and his amazing fetus. What's really good is that, look, people are going to say the plot's bad because it's unnecessarily complicated, but that's fine because it makes sense in its own context.
Right.
Like, once you're finished with that game, like everything that happened for a reason that you actually discover. And there's a lot of plot points that spin and turn and go this way and that way. I didn't have as much frustration with the game as other people. I see a lot of people running around with packages who are constantly dropping stuff down a hill and things like that. And I'm like, bro, have you tried walking? Because, you have a severe decrease in chances of dropping stuff if you stop trying to run.
Mm-hmm.
And like that whole thing, that changed how I felt about moving in games forever. Because with the amount of attention to momentum and navigating terrain in Death Stranding, when I played another game and I was walking around that one, I was like, this running is fake as fuck. It's just too unrealistic.
His running is fake.
I launched Assassin's Creed, and that is the polar opposite. You can just climb up the face of a rock.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, you can't do that.
Not in Death Stranding.
I was impressed at the speed my character walked at, even. That game really shows you how to appreciate time, I guess. Especially because you spend a lot of time with it. And the game, like Return of the King, it ends like 5 times. Like, the game ends, and it's like, haha, just kidding, we got more. And then you do it again, and then you get the credits, and then the game's like, go back that way. Once you go back that way, you stop somewhere, and it gives you the title.
Wow.
Again. And then it tells you, no, keep going. You get a really long, satisfying cutscene where the game is finished and all the events have happened, and it's pretty good. But you still have to keep going. And there's just one more thing you do.
Now in these keep going moments, are these like the game tells you go on to do this other thing,
Mm-hmm.
or is it the type of thing where like you only know if you decide to continue playing?
No, you do keep playing. Like, you don't get thrown to the ending screen the way Nier Automata does that. It keeps having an ending, and then you keep playing. Then it seems like it's over, and it keeps you going. The very ending of the game is good though, because once the very final thing you do happens, there's a lot of interpretations on what it meant, but it kind of puts one last unanswered question together.
Mm.
And it's really good because of that. So
Okay.
I enjoyed that one. Good
Well,
plot.
I'm going to challenge you on the idea of Death Stranding being a great game for time management because I have the best game for time management of all time.
What's that?
Persona 5.
Persona 5? That was not on my list.
Persona 5 is absolutely one of the best games of this generation. Without a doubt. Best story, has incredible gameplay, has incredible mechanics, a visual style like literally no other game.
Yeah.
It is just beautiful. And one of your favorite things, has an incredible soundtrack. Literally every single place in the game has different theme music.
I regret not
from
playing
classroom
that game
to
more.
classroom, it has different theme music.
Yeah, I played it for about, like, I would say 4 or 5 hours when we had the studio.
Yep.
And, like, I was really liking the music and the plot, but I was just kind of put off by the turn-based RPGs because it's still not really my thing. But I was like, damn, this, if I really do have time to just sit down and get through it, I'm sure I'd love it.
Yeah, I'm
Because
positive
I was just a little bored. But
I'm positive I'm trying to convince absolutely no one that's listening, but Persona 5 is absolutely something you should play.
And if not, listen to the soundtrack.
Yeah, and at the very least, listen to the soundtrack. And if that's too much, they have the Persona 5 anime on Hulu, which is just the storyline from the game. It's basically every cutscene from the game compiled together in an episodic adventure you can watch on Hulu. It is ridiculous. They did the same thing for Persona 4.
You can just watch
absolutely.
that on Hulu.
You can just watch it on Hulu.
Taking notes.
But as far as gameplay goes, it's so funny because I was actually playing another game that's on my list coming up down the road, and I had this brain fart moment where like I was really excited that I was beating this boss because I was like, yes, I'm gonna beat this boss, and then he's gonna join my party, blah blah blah. And then after I beat him, I had that very quick depressed moment where I was like, oh, wrong game. Wrong game. This is not what's going to happen here.
Oh. That's foreboding.
But yeah, no, I mean, Persona 5 is without a doubt one of the best games. I'm sure people have, praised it nonstop. My personal favorite thing, as always, really is the time simulation and the control of your day aspect. The way that each of your days is broken up into 4 segments. Your wake up segment, your morning/school segment, then you have your afternoon and your night segment, and you can really only do one thing in those time spans, which made me realize that in real life, you can really only do about 4 things a day to completion. And so playing Persona made me a better person.
You know what I've seen?
Except for the managing relationships part.
Oh. Yeah.
Managing relationships. It definitely made me a better person at managing friendships. It made me worse at managing actual romantic relationships.
Yeah. Do not take your romantic cues from any video games, people. They're still all wrong. Even
They're
the
all
dating
wrong.
sims.
They're all wrong. They're all wrong because they play automatically to the idea that the other person likes you.
And to the fantasy fulfillment that some people will be interested in talking to you.
Right. Right. So that's my time management game for sure.
All right. Speaking of time management, I do not have something to seg into with time management. But I didn't manage my time properly when I had Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Oh, you know what's crazy? My little brothers have been playing Odyssey recently. I've been visiting them more often. And between the 2 of them and their friends, they've all been like trying to finish Odyssey, but like to max completion. They're doing every side quest, everything.
You know how far they got?
They just beat Hades or something. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, that's actually really far into the game.
Yeah.
That's like the second of 3 episodes of the final half of the DLC. Yeah, there was that much DLC. Assassin's Creed Odyssey had an expansion pack, which was the first one, which was divided into 3 episodes, and you get 1 each month.
Wow.
And then they had a second expansion pack, which was into 3 episodes, 1 each month.
Wow.
It was really thorough, so that game was in my face a lot by the time I was done with that game and I had really beaten as much as I wanted to do, I had 160 hours on my save file. And I know that that's not quite true because I know that I did other stuff too that wouldn't have counted on that. So I'd actually say I probably almost spent 200 hours on it.
Wow.
And it deserves an award for that. It does deserve to, wave no at for doing that level gating bullshit thing. They made the game purposely grindy, so you buy this like time saver where it boosts your experience and currency.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. No. Bad Ubisoft.
I wish they hadn't done that. Because guess what? They didn't do it in Valhalla.
Good.
And that's 3 mentions. All right. Okay. Yeah, I'm still getting through Valhalla, and a lot of things changed that were improvements on Odyssey. But, I can't count Valhalla as a game here, and I haven't even finished it. Like, it's really a next-gen game.
Definitely. Would you say... So you're definitely saying Odyssey over Origins?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah? Huh. Okay. I haven't played either one, but I was watching Odyssey gameplay because, like I said, my brothers have been playing. And I don't enjoy watching them play it. I don't think I would like it. Like, the health bars are so long on mediocre enemies. Like, every single person had the health bar of, like, a boss from other games. Yeah. It was crazy. I don't want to play that.
Yeah, it was a lot of bullet sponge enemies.
Yes.
Bullet sponge, I know. Damage sponge. But yeah.
That killed it for me.
Yeah, they made a lot of tweaks that improved on it in the new game, but for everything it did, I was satisfied at the time. And considering the amount of time I put into it, for how long I did, it has to be on my list.
It has to be, especially if it kept you in there for that long. I don't do a very good job of looking at how much time I put into games, but I also don't do a very good job of finishing games. So that's part of that story. My next game on the list is not a game I finished because it's 2 games. I'm going to go ahead and cheat real quick because these 2 games are pretty much the same game from different developers. So like either one can be a game that you have to play for this generation. My brain leans a little bit more towards Sekiro because it's basically the new Tenchu, since it has like the assassination elements and the hiding elements, while Neo is very like samurai Demon Souls, which is cool. But Sekiro and Neo both come in as contenders. I feel like there are moments from each game that I confuse and think belong to the other game. Like when I think back on my time playing them, I'm like, yo, was that boss? I'm like, that wasn't from this game, that boss. That's craziness.
Why isn't the parry working? Oh shit.
That's right. Yeah, wrong game. Like little things like that. But if I had to just pick one, I think I would go Sekiro just because it has the old. I was a big fan of Tenchu on the PlayStation 1, and it definitely brings back the feeling of Tenchu a lot, like a ridiculous amount. Because there's just so many bosses that you could go up and you could, fight them out and do the hand-to-hand combat if you want to, or you can just come up around them and shank them, baby.
Oh man.
So it's definitely my cup of tea.
I can't do I really don't like the Souls thing.
So you definitely lean more to Sekiro, because Sekiro is less Souls, except for the bosses. The bosses are super Souls-like. Yeah.
It's the thing I played most that used the Souls formula was actually Jedi Fallen Order. That one had a bit of the Souls thing. It was a little faster paced though. Yeah. But same thing, pretty punishing. When you save points, enemies regenerate, and if you get killed by one, you have to go back and kill them to get your XP back.
Right.
So those elements, and it was a decent game, but eventually, no, I just didn't like the difficulty.
Got you.
But
makes sense.
Yet there are games that I'll replay on the hardest difficulty and love, like Bayonetta. But again, platinum games, so I think I just
different
really
gameplay
can't
style.
Handle being patient.
Yeah, different gameplay style. That's what it is. But Sekiro, Neo, I would try both of them. I would recommend Sekiro over Neo just by the slightest margin. Just a tiny bit. Just a little bit. Like when you pour juice in your cup and that little bit goes over the edge, like that.
Oh man. Sure. You want to know what the most important game for hard mode gamers is?
Which one is that?
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Ooh, Horizon. See, I didn't put Horizon Zero Dawn on my list because I didn't finish it. And I didn't play a ton of it. Not because it wasn't good, but I was just playing other things at the time. And I'm going to get around to playing it on PS5 most likely. But yes, tell me more about Horizon, the game that made you a PlayStation gamer officially.
Didn't even make me a PlayStation gamer officially. It started the company.
Yep.
Because you may not know this, we were both working at a lousy job. And I don't know how much I can legally say.
These crooks.
These crooks.
Bank we were working at that were just robbing people of all their money and didn't appreciate us telling them they were robbing people.
Not to mention the rampant time theft they'd always do.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I guess only some people get to shop on the clock. All right. Enough about that. I got mad. They sent me home. Which I guess, I don't know why she did that. I guess she has kids and she thinks that's what you do. One misses. Go home.
Go home.
Okay.
Go to your room.
I know. So I didn't go home. I went to, our nearest favorite electronic superstore. And I picked up Horizon Zero Dawn, went to our studio and played for I think 7 hours or something like that. And that was it. That was me beginning the site right there.
Right there. That was the moment. That's crazy to think that too, because I was literally 3 years into PlayStation 4 and Horizon just dropped and took it away.
I just that's it. It's on. And to make matters better, it's also a really good game. It is.
Yeah.
Solid work on the open world formula, of course, because, it's not loaded with busy work. There were a lot of side quests and actual things to do. I think the only complaint I had is some of the plot was too much like a Disney ride. Because when you go through plot segments, when you try to learn about, how things were before in the, previous cycle, I don't know what they call it.
In the pre-world.
Yes. You basically just walk around through old buildings and watch holograms.
Yeah.
That's kind of a lame way of delivering the backstory, because it just, let's click on this audio log. Let's click on that audio log. Here's another audio log. And that really marred it down, but the rest of it's still good. It had great gameplay. I never felt overpowered, but I always felt capable being this person who's got a spear and has to fight these giant robot dinosaurs.
Isn't that such a crazy concept, robot dinosaurs? I'm sitting here thinking to myself, of the games that I would love to have seen a remake for, Dino Crisis is one. But Horizon is basically Dino Crisis.
The fights are all really difficult, but fair.
Okay.
And I never felt like they were unfair. They were just really designed. The boss challenges are all really good design, and every single fight you feel like you earned. Because after you get to a certain point, there really aren't any machines that you can easily defeat other than the very basic introductory ones. But they're not even meant to be a threat to you. They actually serve as cameras technically, because they'll alert the bigger bots. So that's not really their threat, but fighting me, oh man, the amount of tactics you can use, spectacular. Reslate. Check this one. Okay. So, that's all I can really say about it.
Horizon Zero Dawn. You know what's interesting about that game? And this is what a lot of people don't know. It was made by Guerrilla Games. Which is very, very well known for making the Killzone series, which I love Killzone.
I never played.
And a lot of people never played Killzone. A lot of people played Halo over Killzone. So many different things happened. But it was really interesting to see them kind of get a fresh start with a whole new franchise. And we know that the sequel's coming to PS5. That's already kind of been discussed. So it's pretty exciting. Another game in the Sony catalog that got an incredible overhaul and basically a fresh start that is absolutely in the games of the generation, God of War.
Oh, shit. How did I forget God of War?
God of War. Listen, there was no...
I'm changing my list.
I'm changing my list.
Not too late.
No more powerful... like, I don't think there's ever been a character I played as in any video game that made me feel as powerful as Kratos.
Azura's Wrath?
Even Azura's Wrath. Like, I loved Azura's Wrath. Don't get me wrong. That is one of my favorite games, and I really wish that that would have gotten a sequel or something more than what it was. Or even just a PS4 remake. Like, I don't care. Just let me play it again, right? But no, God of War just makes you feel not just powerful as, like, a physical being, but also emotionally powerful. The connection that he shares with his son the whole journey is, like, it's just powerful. It just felt so much more heartwarming. And then the twist at the end and all the secrets you learn along the way, and also taking it out of Greek mythology into Norse mythology, which led Assassin's Creed to copy them.
That's four.
That is definitely one game that I think you got to play. Also, there's a very important thing to note about God of War.
Yeah.
And I don't, this might actually be something that a lot of people don't know, even though they do know. It was a one take game, like a one shot game, right? Like
the camera never cuts.
The camera does not cut. It just moves around with you, right? Like baffling to see a game happen like that.
Because you also don't get the loading screens.
You don't get the loading screens.
When you transfer, you just... You get on this thing and you walk in a circle for a bit and then you're done.
And then you're done. And it was just, wow. Like, amazing game. Everybody who has a PS4 should play it. If you have a PS5, play it. Everyone who has a PS4 probably did play it.
And it really does speak as a testament to how good it is again, because it's yet another game I didn't play any of the originals for.
Yep.
I haven't played any God of War games, so I played that one. It was
spectacular.
Amazing. Yeah.
Spectacular.
Great time. And I didn't feel like I had to know anything going into that.
You didn't. That was the most amazing part about it. You could literally go in there and know nothing, as you did, right? But then if you go in as a fan like me, there's so much homage and fan service and so many moments, especially the big reveal moment. It's just like, oh, wow.
The one halfway through about a certain weapon?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to say, though, even though I haven't played the other games, I still know enough about them from having seen them that when that scene happened, I was like, oh, he's going to get the things.
Yep.
And I was like, I was like, ooh. I got excited there.
Yep. That is one game that cannot be missed.
Cannot.
How many exclusives have I shot off? Let's see. I know that just 3 so far. Not bad. Not that bad.
Okay. Is it my turn?
It is.
I'm not sure if I should continue the... Alright, yeah, no, let's get this one out of the way. Here's the last Sony exclusive on my list. It might be on your list. Final Fantasy VII Remake.
It was. It's definitely on my list.
Alright.
It's on my list.
That is one
Probably for different reasons, but it's on my list for sure.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I didn't play Final Fantasy VII before. Do you notice the trend, guys?
Am I sounding like a fanboy yet?
And I had to have, when I was finished the game, I'm not going to make spoilers here, but when I finished the game, I needed some help understanding what was actually a different element about that. Okay. Because certain characters weren't there. Those things called the Whispers were brand new. And I didn't know what they were for. You know, those Grim Reaper things flying around all the time. I wasn't in the original. And I didn't get what purpose they had either until they told me. It's like, that's interesting. So it didn't have as much of an impact on me having not played the original.
Right.
But still, thorough experience, even having not done that.
And you feel like it was a complete game, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It is a complete game beginning to end. It is just in one location. But you do a lot, and everyone says, it's all fluff and filler. It's like, it's not all fluff and filler. They just made every little thing better.
Yeah, I will say that confidently as someone who did play the original Final Fantasy VII multiple times. I even went through a period where I was like a super fan. I bought every Blu-ray related to the game. I bought Crisis Core, which is still the best Final Fantasy game that needs to be remade.
Yeah.
Ever. Like Crisis Core, best game, hands down. But for me, and it might be because of the fact that I played the original, but it doesn't feel like a complete game.
You haven't finished it though.
Yeah. But I'm so close to the end that it still doesn't feel like. And
Okay, how far did you get without? Let's see if we can work our way around this spoiler free again.
I'm at chapter 12.
That's pretty close.
Yeah.
That's pretty close. I just
and
need
again,
one cue to get back into what you're doing there.
Are
you trying to go rescue a person?
No.
You're not trying to rescue any people.
No.
I'm trying to remember what that was, because I think the final chapter was 15.
Yeah, there's only 15 chapters in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, that. I feel like that's like a half spoiler. Like, there's only 15 chapters.
Yeah, that's not
figure it out from there.
That just gives you hash marks on how long it takes to beat it, because you know how many chapters there are.
Yeah, so I'm at chapter 12. I just started chapter 12. Like, I literally put it down and was like, all right, time to go do this podcast. So I think because I know how much of the game is missing, it feels like this is not a full game. And I say that because everything you play in Final Fantasy VII Remake is legitimately the intro to Final Fantasy VII.
I know.
It's like Nier Automata, right? Like, you play, or even worse.
You don't replay it. I would say it's more like...
No, you don't replay it, but like, you, not Nier. What was the game? There was a game, Assassin's Creed, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was Assassin's Creed, where you play for like 15 hours before you even see the title screen. Before it ever says Assassin's Creed, right? Or Red Dead, same thing, right? Like, you play this long amount of time
before you get
before anything, right? So even though in like the context of the game, it feels like it's a complete game, because it feels like I'm playing through a complete act. However, it doesn't feel like I'm playing through what I'm supposed to be playing.
Yeah.
I'm just playing through Act 1, and that's where I have an issue with it. But outside of that, it is everything I asked for, right? Like, it's literally like, even with the changes that I've seen so far, it's almost 1-to-1 to the original game. Like, it's almost identical to the original thing, and the only changes are genuinely to make it better.
Yeah,
like, all these changes,
expansions, like Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge are out of the game pretty early on in the original. Jesse?
No, they get all the way to where I'm at so far.
Really?
Yeah.
In the original, I mean?
Yep.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought they kind of just disappeared.
Nah, they die at about the same point.
Yeah.
Even the dialogue with Biggs is about the same too.
I might have to censor you saying that.
Nah, that's if you don't know the spoilers for Final Fantasy VII, you are bugging. But I guess you can censor that.
Well, I mean, there's one we all know, but that's not the one we're discussing.
That's not the one we're talking about. But no, I think Final Fantasy VII is definitely a game of the generation. As weird as it is, because the more I play through it, right, and with all the other games that have come out this generation, it makes me go, you guys cash grabbed me. You did. Because you could have finished this game completely. You could have remade the game from beginning to end. However, one thing I will admit that maybe no other fanboys have, and the ones who have are probably being shut down like I'm going to be, the intro for the game, like I said, you're playing through the intro of the game in this remake, right? The intro of the original Final Fantasy VII is the only part of the game that was fast, right? So like the intro takes probably like 7 hours. So for them to have expanded this to where it's at now, where you're playing like 20, 30 hours, like all of the side quests got expanded.
It was about 35 hours for me, I think, when I finished it. And I did like, not full completionist stuff, but I did like all the side quests.
Yeah, I've done every side quest so far, but it's like, literally all of these things that are happening happened within 7 hours the first time around. So all of the additions that they did, the extended, and for me, just playing the game in the visual fidelity that you're playing it at is everything that I wanted. I just wanted the same game with better graphics. And they got really close to it. The only thing that might be a big throw off for some people, especially for me at first, I still love turn-based fighting game, like turn-based fights in RPGs personally. So I wish it would have been turn-based. But outside of that, I'm good. I think that game is amazing. So I don't got to mention it on my list. It's already on yours.
Yeah. So that knocks out the one we had in common. You got any more Sony exclusives for us?
Well, I mean, if that knocks down that one, that brings us to our final 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, it does.
And I'm going to let you start because one of my final 5 was Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Okay.
And it just ended up that way because I was writing my list earlier and I decided to go top. I went from the bottom up as opposed to the top down. And obviously I had just finished playing Final Fantasy, so why wouldn't that be the first thing that came to my mind when I made the list?
All right, we're going to take a quick recording break. And when we come back, we'll talk about our final 5, which are not actually in any specific order. Final 5. And Vega added a 5th one to his so that we could have 5 again.
I replaced Final Fantasy VII, so because we already talked about it.
See if we have any more in common. I doubt it, but
yeah, we didn't look at what we have in common, which we probably should have done. But
does that mean though that Final Fantasy VII already is the best game of the generation because we agreed?
Because we agreed on it. It could very well be. Although I'm not gonna lie, I kept Horizon and DMC5 off of my list because I was like, there's no way Chet's not gonna mention this. There's no way he's not gonna mention this at all. All right. Do you want to take it first this time?
Okay, let's see. I want to do it in a way that's interesting because I want to see which one is the best one to save for last.
I'm just going to continue on the path I was going and continue from bottom up.
All right, let me hit you with a curveball.
Okay.
Number 5-ish. Super Mario Odyssey. The second game with Odyssey that is in my list of top games. So I don't know when they're gonna make Super Mario Valhalla, but I look forward to it. Super Mario Odyssey is like, I don't want to say a return to form. It's like it's another game that gives you the exact Mario experience that is just a pure, well-designed game where all the levels you go to have tons and tons of tiny details that you can revisit and try to accomplish, all to find more in this game. Instead of stars, you get stars and like Super Mario 64, they're moons.
Okay.
But each level has like 20 or more, and only some of them are obvious. Some like require an extreme amount of weird things to do to get it. Very well designed game. And I felt like it was just in its pure form. It was the best of what Nintendo can do, like in terms of Switch games. So if I had to list all the Switch games I played together, I would say that one over Breath of the Wild.
Wow.
Was more definitive, because Breath of the Wild was a good long game, but when I was done with it, I didn't want to ever see it again. And like, it was good, but it didn't make my cut because reasons. That's why.
Reasons. Just reasons.
I think I eventually got sick of it, and that's why, because I was doing certain things, and then at some point I was just like, forget this, I'm just doing the ending, and I skipped a whole bunch of stuff.
Makes sense.
Not like the most important things, but like I beat it without the Master Sword. Yeah. So that's not on the list. Super Mario is Super Mario. Best game of Nintendo Switch, which I guess counts as the generation. I don't know.
That counts. No, that definitely counts. Nintendo Switch is PS4 and Xbox One generation.
Yeah.
They're all kind of go together. So I can definitely appreciate that. And it made me realize, like, I really did not buy a Switch at all. Like I'm just every time I think about buying a Switch, like I'm like, I only really want to play Pokemon. Like that's really the only thing I really. It's kind of like Xbox, where it's like if I could find like 4 or 5 more games that I want to play, then I might get it. But like even the 2 that I really wanted to play, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I played, and I did not love it. What else did I play on Switch? There was something else.
I get played over like 20 games on the Switch, and the reason they didn't make it is just a lot of them were really good, but had an iteration on something else that's better. For instance, I played Astral Chain on Switch, and it was really good. Very, very hard game by Platinum Games, but Platinum also did Nier Automata, and that was a better game.
Yes.
So I can't like put it on that one too, and the same goes for like I don't care for Smash Bros, so that's off the list.
Not a fan of Smash Bros. Sorry.
Forget Smash Bros, you guys.
Well, if you're gonna go with a Nintendo classic, I guess I'll go with a Sony classic.
Oh, you brought it back. Let's hear it.
And I'm bringing in Uncharted 4.
All right.
Wow. If you ever wanted to play a game that really made you feel like you were playing a movie, Uncharted 4 is the one.
It does look very movie-like. It
is so cinematic, very similar to God of War. It's basically the action-packed adventure version of God of War, right? Where it's just guy traveling the world, trying to get all these treasures and everything. And I think that they did an incredible job of like bringing it all to a close. Right, like we get to finally, especially if you're a fan of Uncharted, like as a series, it just ties up every possible loose end in the story that you've been following since day one. We get the romantic closeout, we get the mentor closeout, we get everything that you're looking for, and it feels incredible when you finish that game. It's a game of the generation for sure. Uncharted 4, 100% great game.
That was the only Uncharted of this decade besides this generation besides the Lost Legacy one, right?
Right, Lost Legacy was the short form, which Sony's done a lot of. So like
they do a lot of short
First
forms
Light.
Of their,
yeah, you get a little bit of like a extra content for the fans and an entry point for the people who might have never tried it, right? Like, who might have gotten overwhelmed by such a big game. But Uncharted 4, definitely a game of the generation.
Very cinematic.
Yes.
All right, where else do I go? There's only one other game that used sound in such a way that I had to say, man, that had some really good sound.
Wow. I feel like I know which game you're going to go with.
You do. So that's Hellblade.
Yes.
Senua's Sacrifice.
Senua's Sacrifice, baby.
That was just, that game was very, like, foreboding. And like it had minimal interface with the gameplay, it was very naturalistic. I believe it also kind of did the no camera cuts thing. It just didn't really tout it that way.
Okay.
But it was like that. I don't remember there ever being like a
strong
change. Cut. Except for one very specific section where it's supposed to be pitch black. So yeah, that's like a cut. But that one, very clever with the gameplay. For those who don't know, this was a game that actually originally came out on PlayStation.
Yep.
And then got moved over to Xbox. And now they own it.
Now they own the studio, so they own everything.
They saw it, it's like, we'll have that, thanks. They snatched it right out of their hands.
Microsoft money.
They what they did is they simulated having psychosis. On top of this being a very like heavy experience with a lot of pain and brutality, you also have like voices in your head commenting on what you're doing. And they use like binaural audio. Is that the best way to call it that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that they do actually feel like they're talking to you from different sides. And they're different specific voices. And one of the voices you trust more than the other is in a certain spot. It's like your back left. One is like, don't listen to the other one. I'm the only one you need to trust. And it's true. She never betrayed me. That one voice in her head was good. That's a good voice in the head.
Okay.
That is a masterful use of it. It also comes into play when everything is pitch black, like I said it was. because what you have to do is you can't see where you're going, and you have to follow the path or you'll die. So you have to listen for things and walk towards things you can hear. That was mind-blowing to me. Like, okay, the first thing you need to watch for is the babbling brook, and it's like very far away, and you can hear the water, rolling down, and then you make your way there. And then you just make your way and you eventually get out. Spectacular game. Also, the game gives you a psych evaluation at the end of it.
Tells you how crazy you are.
Hellbladehelp.com. It leads you there, and you can actually take a test to figure out if you have depression, anxiety, or psychosis.
How'd you score?
I have a little bit of all three. Go me.
Nice. Nice. All right. So the next game is kind of a no-brainer. Everyone's probably expecting and waiting for when this game was going to pop up in our top 10 list. Well, here it is.
Here it is.
Marvel's Spider-Man.
Marvel's Spider-Man.
There was no way you could make a top 10. There's no one who could make a top 10 games of the generation and not have Spider-Man in the list. Like, doesn't matter. It had the most incredible, world navigation of any game, period. Whether you're swinging through the air or you're just running across the floor, everything about the game just felt super fluid. You can tell Insomniac learned a lot from that moment of infidelity where they worked with Xbox. But as a whole, that game just, you really can't say enough about it, especially with Miles Morales out now. It doesn't even take much effort to try it. Also, fun fact for those who may not have heard, the remastered version of Spider-Man has now been updated to support saves from the previous version on PS4.
Oh, that's good.
So you can transfer your saves from PS4 to PS5 now.
I was wishing my PS4 would support downloading it, because I had that issue for a while where certain games refused to download.
Yeah, that was weird. You did go through that for a little bit.
Yeah, it did finally fix, and that one's also installed, but
okay.
I have a lot of things to go through. After December 10th, it's all over. We all know why. I'm not even going to say the name, because to invoke the name would to curse it and delay it again.
Be delayed again.
But I played a little bit of that game when you guys were playing somewhere, and I picked up super fast with it too. Yep. You just told me do this. I was going through it and I'm like, yeah, this is great. I ended up fighting some people, and I was actually doing really good for someone who had only just started playing the games, and it was one of the hardest fights in the game. You had 10 people coming at you at the same time. You remember that?
Yeah, there's a ton of those spawn points in the game. It's like every other, especially once you get to a certain point of the game, where certain things happen in the city and you have to deal with these mercenaries, it gets nuts. But just the depth to that game was incredible, right? You start off just being Spider-Man. He's already Spider-Man, so you don't have to go through none of the learning who you are nonsense.
Yeah,
right?
I'm glad.
You start with an incredible skill set. You already know Peter Parker. It feels great. Right? And then the progression system in that game is really what sold me, right? Because as you know, chat, I'm terrible at upgrading things, right? I usually get through, I would say, 70% of the games that I finished, I got to the end without upgrading anything. I just play because I don't want to go through. Those decisions overwhelm me. All the options, I rather just keep playing until I figure out a strategy to get to where I need to get to. You feel me? Until
upgrades.
Unless it forces you to upgrade, right?
Yeah.
Spider-Man forces you to upgrade, but in a very the best way to put it is Spider-Man way. If you were watching a Spider-Man cartoon or reading a Spider-Man comic, the evolution throughout the comic is exactly how it happens in the game. So every time you get a new suit, you want to put this new suit on because it looks super dope. It's cool as hell. And then it comes with different skills and you're just oh, I want to try this out because it just sounds interesting, right? The amount of costumes and fan service with the comic books that you find throughout the game, the locations you look for throughout the game, they really... And living in New York, man, they did a great job recreating the city. I think they did a fantastic job, personally. There's one part, I don't think this is spoilers, but there's one part where it asks you you have to go to the part of the city where the trains are not underground. If you're from New York, that is the quickest
Easiest
thing
thing
to
ever.
think about ever. You're just like, oh, the part of the city where the trains are not underground. I know exactly where that's at. It's all of Uptown. So that part was just amazing. To see like all of that visual fidelity, all of that honesty. Play Spider-Man.
I shall
Play Spider-Man.
at some point. It's on the list. All right, we're down to 3, right?
3, the last 3 pick'ems.
All right. You know what? Okay, so this one, I played a lot of horror games, and I used to hate most horror games, but I've started playing a lot since. Layers of Fear changed that because it like a different kind of horror game was emerging at the beginning of the cycle. PT changed everything, right?
Yes.
You know, you just got this game that wasn't even a finished game, created all these other games.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very cool. I liked it, so I got involved with those horror games and even more horror games like that. There's a couple I really liked, but I kind of had to choose between the 2 of them. Because, like for you, there was a tie between 2 games, but those games were similar. These games are not, but I have to go by which one I wanted to play more of.
Okay.
Because one of the games left me depressed. But I already put Nier Automata on this list, so I can't put on another game about existentialism that makes you depressed at the end. So I had to go with the Observer. Observer. I got that one, and it was scarier than I was expecting it to be, too. Because it was like, it's going to be a little creepy sci-fi game. No, it's scary.
Huh. Didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's the one where you go around in, like, you know, the slums in the future, and you can jack into people's minds and read, like, their memories and their dying breath, wishes, things. I don't know. They don't explain it. You basically, he interrogates people by interfacing with their neural chip, and then you go through their memories, and it's scary. Especially once you get to like people who are dying, because you get these very weird things, nothing makes sense. You have to follow dream logic for all of these ones to get where you're going.
Okay.
And just spectacular commentary. It's depressing for a different reason, because the premise is scary. You're in this slum in the future, and the building you're in looks like at one point, you know, it had less people in there, because like you'd be walking around the apartment doors, and there'd be like a random disused toilet over there and a random disused kitchen over here. And it's like you get the impression that they took a house and turned that to even smaller apartments.
Oh, wow.
And it just evokes this really scary idea where everybody are going to be crammed into all these small spaces where you're going to have paying rent to get what is essentially a room this big and live in it, but you live in it and it's okay because you have VR to distract you forever. And
wow.
like,
that is definitely the sound of the future.
And like, it's scary in that, like, conceptually. For most of the personal interactions, you go around and you get a real feel for the city, because you're a detective. You're trying to find your son, and the people you interview.
Sorry,
they wanted to save money on human animation, so you talk to everyone through the doorbell. And
that's
it just
crazy.
Yeah, a little view screen will pop up with like an eye moving around, and someone will talk to you, and you hear the weirdest, crazy shit, and you're like, oh my god, this would be awful to live in. And it's just a lot of high concept stuff. And it was like one of very few horror games that I played again right away. And I'm actually going to play it again very soon, because they did a updated version called System Redo, or Redux, however you say that R-E-D-U-X word. Redux.
I say redo.
Yep, System Redo. And that one has more interrogations, 3 additional levels. Everything runs in 4K 60. And I want to see what this expanded one looks like.
Wow. Okay. I almost put PT on, and then I was like, you can't put that. People can't even get it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I lost my hard drive that had a copy of that game on it, so I don't even know how I would play it again. So you can't put it on there. And then I almost put also, because I thought about this very heavily, in the same vein of horror games, just drew a blank on it now. Wow, that kind of sucks. It'll come back to me, though. And when it does, I'll say it. But in the meantime, we're going to dive into the part of my list where I know most of the internet is going to be baffled.
Baffled. All right, let's hear it.
Ready? So, up next for Games of the Generation, my honest opinion comes Judgment. Judgment is phenomenal. It is literally the best version of a Yakuza game, even though it's not really a Yakuza game.
It's not as silly as the other ones.
It's
the side quest stuff, like
the side quests I think are just as silly, but not as goofy.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like the side quests in Yakuza, like some of them were kind of goofy, especially when you consider that your protagonist is a gangster, right? Yeah. Like he's just a gangster who should not really be interacting with all of these people because he's a gangster. In Judgment, the story is significantly better because it follows a detective who is doing detective work and also trying to figure things out amongst this land of like lawlessness and gangsters, right? But then the side quests are just more detective work. So he's picking up cases for people that are just random people in the street. So you get the infidelity cases. Go spy on my wife or husband.
You're not just doing random stuff.
You're not just doing random stuff. You're doing random stuff because it's your job.
Yeah.
Right. So then some of those get kind of funny. Like, of course, I'm sure tons of people have seen the memes already, but you have the wig guy, right? Like this guy who literally hires you as a detective to find his missing wig all the time because it gets blown off by the wind. But like without his wig, he can't be a pop star because he's bald. It's amazing. It is hilarious. The greatest. So, but Judgment really, it just fixes so many of the issues that Yakuza had. And by creating a completely different storyline, different character, different like plot level, all these different escapes from Yakuza, it also made it possible to give it the facelift it needed. So there's a lot of gameplay mechanics that got updated and became a little bit better in Judgment. And I really think it, especially on a visual level, shows you that first of all, Sega got to get it together before they get bought by Microsoft. And secondly, the PS4 had so much power. Like, it is amazing to see you go from cutscene that looks crazy directly to gameplay without missing a beat. Like, you're playing in the same engine almost, right? Like, there's some... It
doesn't cut to, like, the pre-rendered
Yeah, no, there's, like, a couple of pre-rendered cutscenes. Of course, they use, like, the top-level CGI for those. But for the most part, it doesn't happen all the time. You know, it's that is one game I think, as quirky as it may be, everyone should try Judgment at least once. I might. Great game.
Isn't that also an exclusive?
No, I think Judgment is available on Xbox. I'd be surprised if it's not, to be honest. Let's fact check that.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hashtag fact check. Only the facts at Hard Mode Gamers Podcast.
Judgment. Xbox One. Gears of War. Judgment.
What? Xbox. Judgment was a PS4 exclusive? Wow. So the majority of my list was populated by exclusives. That's incredible.
Fanboy.
Fanboy for sure. But it's crazy because like that's what I buy PlayStations for, is for the exclusives. Any Xbox exclusives on your list?
I have ones that are retroactively exclusive.
Retroactively exclusive?
Like Hellblade.
Hellblade's not exclusive though. You can still play it on PS4.
No, Hellblade 2.
Hellblade 2 will be.
So I'm saying, will be. Technically. No, it was PS4 games as well.
Yeah.
Actually, so this one, not a lot of people are going to agree with this one. IGN really liked this game a lot.
Okay.
It is a weird game, but it's by a developer who, if you know the games they make, you can kind of expect it, and that's Control.
Control.
That's
Remedy, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Control is just this game where it's the SCP Foundation in game form, you know, where you have all those creepy stories you read on the internet, and like they actually go and investigate these things. And you're in a house, like the Federal Bureau of Control. They operate in this place called the Oldest House, and they're pretty sure that it's alive in some way. And there's this janitor dude who might actually be the master of the entire house, and you have this otherworld entity called the Board who talk to you in a weird way, and you can. It's just all really weird cult sci-fi, like a bunch of things you would see on the Twilight Zone. That's the best way to put it.
Wow. Or on what's the new one that Netflix has? What's their series called?
Twilight Zone?
No, they have something similar to Twilight Zone. Bandersnatch, thing before that word.
Well, they do actually run a connected universe, and in the connected universe with Control, which also has Alan Wake and Quantum Break, there's a TV show called Night Springs, and I don't know why they call it that, but it is absolutely, basically, Twilight Zone.
The name of the new Twilight Zone is Black Mirror. Black Mirror on Netflix is basically 2020, like the newer version of Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's a technology version.
Yeah.
Got really good gameplay. The plot's not great, but the thing is, it's like what I liked about it was the weirdness. It was just full of this weird cult sci-fi stuff. And part of that was just something you'd realize while playing the game is that the people working at this Federal Bureau of Control, I believe you have to be crazy to work for them. And that's why I think they do. Like, everyone who works there has to be somewhat crazy. And everyone does seem that way. Like, so because they're so happy with where they are, despite the fact that there is weird shit happening 24/7. Like, the house rearranges itself just for fun. I'm like, yeah, this is cool.
I'm gonna have to check out Control. That's crazy. Like, there's a lot of third-party games that I really wanted to play that I didn't because there was just so much first-party stuff for PlayStation.
So the plot itself is not great. It doesn't have a lot of driving force. It's what you do that really puts it forward.
Gotcha.
It's just like a bunch of weird stuff.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to check it out.
All right. Penultimate for you.
Ready for one that's going to shock the internet waves.
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest games of this generation was actually Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Like, that game
it's on some people's lists
was amazing. The Nemesis system that it created, like, that's probably one of the longest games. That's one of the games that I spent the most amount of time in. And it's the reason I almost bought Jedi Fallen Order. Because I was not, like, I was a Lord of the Rings fan, but not a fanboy. Like, I saw the movies, I thought they were cool. I read a couple of the books because I shared that bond with my uncle, so I thought it was cool. But, like, I wasn't like a committed person.
Yeah, no, I was never big.
But I played Shadow of Mordor like I was the largest fanboy in the world. I almost platinumed that game. Right? Like,
oh, yeah.
It was crazy the amount of stuff and time that I put into that game. Like, I did everything.
Platinumed Control, so that's why part of why I say why it's so good, because I wanted to platinum it. But yeah, oh man.
Yeah, that game, absolutely amazing. And also one of the games from the beginning of the generation, which is outrageous.
Yeah, Shadow of Mordor is pretty.
I'm about to dive into Shadow of War as well when I finish up with Final Fantasy VII.
The good thing, like Shadow of Mordor, I guess the ideas were so good that Ubisoft wanted to rip it off, because they did rip it off.
They did. Yep, a lot of, and I think more games should have ripped it off because it was just that good.
Yeah, it was very rudimentary in Odyssey, but it was there. It was just like a nice add-on, but it wasn't that deep.
Yeah, no, it was deep in Shadow of Mordor. Like, I remember explicitly having orcs where, like, I felt like I couldn't go to their hood. Like, anytime something was going on in that area or there was a side mission, I'd just be like, I'm gonna get back to that. I'm gonna. That's also one game where I did upgrade almost everything.
Wow.
The upgrades, it was very streamlined, and like every time you got to specific places, it kind of forced you to upgrade certain things. So while I was in that window, I was like, oh, this kind of makes sense to do these things. So like I almost platinumed that game. That game was literally one of the best of the generation, without a doubt.
And synced one more. I definitely, I'll play it at some point. I don't know. It's just the Middle Earth thing really makes me not interested, but I don't know if that will actually keep me away.
I don't know which part of it is keeping you from it, but I will say, as someone who read the books, like I said, and watched a couple of the movies, the relationship is not significant.
Okay.
It's like
it's kind of like
it almost didn't matter, to be honest. Like
one of the games that were like that for me was Transformers Devastation. Transformers Devastation was
the Platinum Games one. Right?
Yep. Another recurring theme for you. It was really fun, and it was based on like the first generation animation Transformers, with a lot of the original voice cast, and some people who do a really good job. And I beat that game on hard, and it was spectacular. Didn't watch Transformers as a kid. I didn't. I mean, like, occasionally when it was on, you know how we were, but I wasn't a big follower on it, ever.
Wow.
So it just proves that games, special license games, if they're good enough, they can surpass their material.
Exactly. 100%.
Ready for the finals?
Is it time? Oh, it is time for finals. Yeah. What's your last one?
My final is the least creative one in the universe. So I'm sad to say that is the most predictable best game ever. I present to thee The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt.
Wow, The Witcher 3. Is that this generation?
Yeah.
It didn't come out in 360 at all?
No.
No, just The Witcher 2, right? Okay. Wow.
Witcher 3 was this generation, relatively early. It is quite a technical achievement. It really is. The only reason I finished it is because I thought I was close to the end, but then it kept you going for another 20 hours. Hey, I like doing that too. Wow, I keep getting tricked by the same trick of all these games. Games not ending when they say they do.
Yep.
But it was so big of a game, and I thought it was gonna like be forever because the main map you look at when you're in there, it gives you the impression you're gonna go to like a few different countries, but you really only go to 2. But each one of those are so big. Like when you get to the part with the islands, there's something going on every single island.
Wow.
And
Witcher 3.
It was a lot to take in. It really was.
I played Witcher 3 until it showed you the whole map, and then I was like, I'm not doing this.
Oh, so you finished White Orchard, and
just stopped right there.
Then after you left, you were like, okay, enough. This map's fine. And you go to the next map, and you're like,
I don't know what map I looked at. All I remember is the last major fight that I did was like against one of the first Griffins or something. Yep. Right? Did that, beat that, got to like the castle gate or whatever. And then I was like,
that was the tutorial.
Oh, word. I'm not playing this game.
It's a big, long game. If you like do a 100% completion, you could probably sink in over 200 hours on that thing. Again, I did finish a little bit early, but I was satisfied with what I got. The weirdest thing is that, for the most part, the ending is based on a lot of decisions you make pretty late in the game. Which is cool, because I wasn't even expecting there to be multiple endings. I thought it was just, had a set ending. I mean, it kind of does. It's more like the epilogue is different.
Yeah.
But even then, you also have the 2 expansion packs, one that takes place in the same map, and then Blood and Wine, which was like an entire additional game.
Oh, boy.
Because Blood and Wine was like a 25-hour game in this new location that was basically fake France.
Wow. Yeah, I do see a theme in the games that you love, and that's that they don't actually finish.
Nope.
Like they finish, and then they're like, but wait, there's more.
Yeah. That's a lot of games for me. Like, I'm even like, if it's not plot relevant, games that allow you to continue playing post-game.
Yeah,
Usually
I
enjoy
don't mind
that.
being allowed to play post game. I just like there to be a definitive ending. Like I like the game to be over. I like to know that I finished because I don't usually get to the end. So if I do get to the end, it matters.
Because then you feel like you completed.
Yeah, I did something, you know? Which brings me to the last game on my list.
Oh boy.
Are you ready for this?
I'm prepared.
I am ready to defend this to the grave.
Oh boy.
One of the greatest games this generation. That title belongs to The Order 1886. No matter what anyone says, game was perfect.
Game was perfect.
It was perfect. From start to finish, the plot was incredible. Everything just kind of made sense and aligned. The gameplay was super fun. Graphics were out of this world, especially being one of the launch games for the console. Like
it does look pretty good.
It still looks great. It was literally one of the best games. The only complaint that I agree with, it's a little bit short. Yeah. I kind of wanted to play more, but that's how good the game is. I wanted to play more. I wasn't satisfied that it was over. You feel me? That is one of the greatest games of this generation.
That's controversial.
Anyone who has a PS4 should absolutely play it.
Well, it's not the best. It's just the one you save for last.
It's not the...
Yeah. Someone say Witcher 3 is the best, but it is up there, but I don't want to say that definitively.
Definitively? Nah, I'd put it in like the top 5. Top 5 for sure. For sure, top 5. Yeah, if it had like side quests, if it had side quests and like 4 more hours, definitely the best game of the generation. 100%.
Yeah,
because it ended in a way where it's like they were definitely going to do a sequel.
It had a
and then everybody got fired because of the backlash for it being so short and all the craziness that happened. And it's like, cool guys, but overall this game is amazing. You know, and I feel like a lot of backlash came from people who never actually played it.
Yeah, no, that's like the majority of backlash. A lot of people don't play it. Yeah, is there hope of it ever coming back, or is it?
Maybe this podcast will spark something, and they'll be like, "We should make a sequel for that one guy."
I know that feel when you have a really good game, you just don't get a sequel to.
It's crazy. Like I would, if somebody was holding up Days Gone and The Order 1886 and was like, "Which of these should I play?" The Order 1886.
Days Gone.
Yep. And there's a whole list of games I could go through where I would say pick up Order 1886 over these games.
Oh, I just don't think it's that controversial to say not big on Days Gone. That was kind of like, it wasn't bad, but like everyone was like, it's fine.
It was lackluster.
It's fine.
Because they went with zombies again.
Yeah,
Order 1886 went with werewolves. How often do you get to fight werewolves in a video game?
Or vampires.
And Vampire almost made the list.
Yeah.
I just felt like it was too, like, the pacing was too slow.
It has a really slow.
Yeah.
It is like
that's the
entire game.
That's the one like commonality between all of my choices.
There is a lot of story.
Yeah, there's a lot of good pacing. Like even Final Fantasy VII, right? Like Final Fantasy VII,
it's amazing.
The pacing is perfect. It's like do a couple of things real quick. All right, cool. You're back to the story. Or even like most of the things you do on the side are related to the main story anyway. They have some sort of relation. Unlike The Witcher, where like you go on a side quest and you'll spend 3.5 hours doing this side quest, only to find out no one else in this world knows who this person even is, and they don't matter at all. And then they give you a shitty prize at the end. Like, wow, thanks for this complete waste of time.
Let's talk about my payment first. That was the worst Geralt impression.
Yep, but that is my top 10 and your top 10 games of the generation.
So I guess based on our one and only rule of having the same game on the list, Final Fantasy VII Remake is the best game of the generation, I guess.
Yeah, might be the best game of the generation because it was the only one that was on the list for both. You know what I find really interesting, though? I don't know how much time we have left for this podcast, but I think it's very interesting that you didn't have any Xbox exclusives on your list.
No?
Like, not a single one. None of them you felt like were worthy of the conversation, best in generation.
Yeah, no, it certainly wasn't Halo.
Okay. Did you play the Insomniac one?
There was only one Halo game, and it was Halo 5, and it wasn't that great.
Sunset Overdrive.
Sunset Overdrive I did play.
That one looked like a lot of fun.
It reminded me of Jet Set Radio, but like less fun. The problem is the gameplay was like a mess of things. It was very hard to tell what you were even doing sometimes. But it's fun.
Gotcha.
I like just skating around and jumping, and that was fun. But is it a spectacular game? Nah, it's fine.
At first, I looked at the list of Game Award nominees, which if you guys haven't seen, the Game Award nominees are out, so definitely check those out. For Game of the Year, not Game of the Generation, or Games of the Year in various categories. And I laughed at first when they said Final Fantasy VII Remake, because I was like, that's crazy that a remake is going to potentially win Game of the Year. But based on our discussion, it seems like a remake is going to win Game of the Year.
Well, there's ones that we both skipped that people may be mad at us for.
Like Red Dead Redemption?
Yeah.
Yeah, people are going to be mad
tons.
at that.
Yeah, no, Red Dead Redemption 2. It's boring. It's too boring. If it gets better later, sure. But you can't do one of those, oh yeah, it gets better after the first
30
25
days.
hours. It's like that defense doesn't always work.
You know
Sometimes it does.
You know what game I expected to see on your list? And was kind of shocked I didn't? Fallout 76. Or at least Fallout 4. I expected one of those two to make it.
Nah, because Fallout 76, like, as much as I enjoyed playing it, it's just they made way too many mistakes when they released the game. And I'm only forgiving of it because I like Fallout. But for everyone else, if you're not into Fallout, there's not much incentive to play it. So the only people left wanting to play it are new people who didn't see its original terrible state and fans, you know.
Got you.
I
almost put Destiny and The Division on. Because I think as far as the trend of what games look like now, we can 100% blame that on Destiny and The Division. The Destiny was the first person shooter to do it, and The Division was the first third-person game to do it, where it was just game as service, right? Like, you get to play this forever, as long as you want, once you buy it one time, and sure, we'll sell you some DLC along the way. But overall, the game continues on, and like, there's still tons of people playing The Division 2. There are people playing The Division 1 still.
Did I tell you that statistic about The Division 1?
What's that?
Oh, the people playing...
Oh, yeah, there are more people playing The Division 1 than
Right
there
now.
are people playing Marvel's Avengers.
On PC. I
On
do have
PC.
to make that qualifier,
On
though.
PC.
But still, more people playing this was 5-6 years, probably more, right?
Division 1 came out in like 2014 because it came out it wasn't a launch game, but it was along the launch of the consoles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that now because
Same
that
with
was
Destiny.
early on when people are like, is this worth it? I don't
Right.
know. Kind of things. I remember that.
And now look at where we are. It's like the only type of game you play is a live service.
No, not all of the list.
Well,
You want to know what else people are going to get mad at for not including, though? Last of Us 2.
you think so?
Yeah. Well, I know there was like a huge backlash over it,
Yeah.
but there were equal amounts of critics who loved it. And because everyone told me it was really bad, I played it and it was good because everyone told me it was bad.
But it might not have been good if people didn't say it was bad.
Yeah, because like everyone was really upset. I don't know how I would have reacted if I had played the game without knowing all the spoilers. Because I did know that going in. I knew everything that was going to happen. So
I don't know anything that's going to happen yet.
no, I just dove in and played it and said like, okay, how does this play out? And after finding it, some of the points are still really stupid,
Okay.
while others are a little bit more justified. That's the problem. Is like also the gameplay's really good. Like it just fails at what it's trying to do. They're like, oh, we're gonna make you feel bad about murdering someone and their dog because they call out their name. Oh, he killed Steve, and I'm like, yeah, this would have worked if we were not like programmed since day one to enjoy ultra violence for
Right.
fun. Like when you approach Mortal Kombat levels of violence and you're trying to tell us feel bad about this, I'm like,
I can't.
nah, it's amazing.
I can't. I find Johnny Cage's fatality hysterical.
No, I've
Oh,
like
man.
shotgunned people in the
Yeah.
face. I've had people like die screaming, and I'm like, haha,
Yeah.
We're so desensitized. You'll stab a few dogs in this game. Sorry, guys. And they do act like upset when you do kill like a dog in a scripted scene. It was like, but there's no way you didn't kill the other dogs that came up in the game.
Right.
Because there's very little ways to dispose of people non-lethally. In fact, I don't even remember
non-lethal options.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of that. Maybe choking. I know you can choke
I can't
people.
wait to play it. Oh shoot.
Is there any other game that we missed that we can justify not being on the list?
I'm trying to think of something else that was super hyped. No, I don't think there is. I think we're pretty much. I mean, again,
battle royale games because
they're dumb. Those cannot be games of the generation at all.
They can't.
They're gonna live on forever.
That's the thing, though. That like we don't want them to be the games of the generation, but this generation was the genesis of the live service and games like battle royales, because battle royales were the it child of this generation. Last generation, everyone wanted to be Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
This generation, everyone wanted to be Fortnite.
Yep.
Well, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, technically, but
Fortnite.
Fortnite.
The only reason I don't qualify
that was
those,
the trend they were chasing.
but I don't qualify those because none of them are great games.
No,
they're just fun, right? Like they're fun in the sense that, like, especially with an example like Fortnite, it's fun because they've dominated the market and all of your friends are playing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's fun about it. It's not necessarily fun because this game has all these cool elements and aspects that make it super fun. Like it became fun because competitively, everyone is playing it. It's exciting. Like you can access Fortnite on damn near every device possible. So how could you not get involved in it? How could it not be what it is? But as far as a best game, like when we think back on this in 10 years, will we say, yeah, Fortnite was probably one of the best games of that generation? Or will we just be like, yo, remember when everybody was hooked on Fortnite? What happened to that game?
Yo, when everyone remember when everyone was hooked on World of Warcraft? What happened to that?
Right, exactly.
Because that was the it boy before that one. Everyone trying to be World of Warcraft. You remember that era?
The MMOs transitioning to console era was PS3. That's what happened with internet gaming for PS3 and 360.
Yeah.
Like Xbox and PS2, specifically Xbox, brought in the idea of multiplayer online games for consoles.
Yeah.
Then PS3 and 360, specifically PS3, took it to, what if we put an MMO on your console? Will you play and subscribe? And then PS4 and Xbox One were like, hey, what if we said, you don't got to pay anything for the game. We're just going to charge you for clothes in the game as if they were real clothes in real life.
Yeah.
And that pretty much sums it up.
That system. Like, I feel like there's very few games where you can earn cool outfits now.
Yep. Everything is behind a paywall now. And that's why I stick to single player games that I can just play through the story for.
Yep, but even single player games got that here and there.
Yeah, I don't care about the costume. I only want to play it in the way that you, as the writer of this story, designed for me to play this story. I'm not interested in changing costumes or doing all this extra stuff. Oh, you know what's really interesting? I looked at it right before I left to come record. Final Fantasy VII. I have not changed my sword for Cloud.
Boy. Here's the thing.
I haven't done any weapon upgrades on any character at all. Like, I've just been playing. And it's funny because I still get frustrated at the game whenever, like, I'm losing. Like, I haven't died a lot either. I've only died, like, 3 or 4 times the whole way through. But, like, I get frustrated as if, like, the game's cheating in some way when it takes me super long to beat people.
You have a lot of... Oh, are you sure you don't have it set to auto upgrade?
Nah,
there is an auto upgrade.
It's not. It's still 0 out of 4 on all the weapons.
Wow.
Yeah. The only thing that auto upgraded that I will admit has auto upgraded is all the materia.
Oh yeah.
Like my spells have auto upgraded, but that's part of the game mechanic.
Yeah, no, you can't choose not to.
Yeah, you can't choose not to.
No, but actually with that one, the one thing you want from the different weapons is that they each have their own special move.
Yeah.
And what you can do is you can grind that attack, because once you use the special move on that weapon enough times, you've learned it, and you can use that special move with any of the other weapons now. For instance, there eventually got to a point where the most overpowered character in my party was Tifa, actually.
Oh, wow.
I had a better build for her than I did for Cloud, so I was mainly playing as her whenever we'd start a battle. It's like, Cloud, okay, Cloud, go do this. And then I'd pick Tifa and I'd run up and start punching people.
Yeah, but you love playing as the female character.
That even wasn't it. Like, she was also the fast character, though. Like, absolutely the fastest character.
Yeah, her punches are a little bit faster than Cloud's Punisher mode.
Yeah, so with her moving around was so much more familiar to other games I like.
Yeah.
And also, the special move I learned, one of the gauntlets you get, is an ability called Star Shower, and she jumps and then teleports 800 times around.
Oh, it's funny. I just equipped that glove now.
Yeah.
Like, I just equipped it as I entered this next part, only because literally the only reason I've changed any weapons for anyone is because it gives me one more materia slot.
Yeah. Now you gotta do it to learn the ability. I started spamming that a lot because it's a pretty OP ability. But I eventually had element materia on her, so I was basically fire punching everyone.
Yeah.
Although I wasn't significant enough to make me feel like I broke the game, because the bosses were still difficult, but beating the mooks got pretty easy after a while. But it's only towards the end of the game where, you start fighting exclusively bosses soon anyway.
Yeah.
You know how it gets with Final Fantasy games.
Yeah. So my next run is either going to be Last of Us 2 or Final Fantasy 15. But Final Fantasy 15 is really big, so I might not do that. I might wait for that for PS5.
Such a big, unfinished game.
So, what will you be playing this week?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of something funny to say. Otherwise, Valhalla. I don't think I'm playing any other game until that game comes out. The game on December 10th when all the world's going to end. But yeah, anyway. That game's going to keep me busy until that happens. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla, yeah.
I'm going to finish up Final Fantasy VII. Like I said, I'm pretty close to the end. And then from there, depending on how I wake up the next day, it will either be some Final Fantasy 15 for me or some Last of Us 2. Mm-hmm. Or, actually, just remember, I picked up Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. So, guys, if you don't know, PS4, or rather, PlayStation's having the Black Friday sale. I'm sure there's something similar on Xbox. But tons of games are on sale. Two that I picked up specifically, Resident Evil 2 Remake and Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, because I am a Dragon Ball Z fan to the core.
Let me see if I have recommendations. Between the two games you're looking at, Final Fantasy 15 versus Last of Us 2. Last of Us Part 2 is pretty linear. In fact, it actually has one section in it where it actually is a little bit open worldy. You get this map, there's more than one place to go to in this one closed area. And then that's the only time that happens, and then you go back to being railroaded.
Oh, so I might play Last of Us so it can give me something that's pretty straightforward. I mean,
it's very straightforward.
Final Fantasy VII is super linear.
It is too.
In this part. Which before we go, that was the one point I was going to make about Final Fantasy VII that I forgot to make. So my concern is, right, when we think about the fact that they didn't give us no, when we think about the fact that they didn't give us they gave us Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that just covers the intro of the game, the first act, right? After the first act of Final Fantasy VII in the original, that's when the game becomes a true to form JRPG, where it's just a big ass open world and you can pretty much go wherever and just good luck, right? That is probably why they had to delay the rest of the game and make it 2 parts, because they knew they could get out the beginning of it pretty quickly, but the rest of it is going to take a while, especially if they flesh it out as much as they did with this first portion. Right, like they turned 7 hours into 35.
I mean, with the 13 series, it was like 1 or 2 years between each one.
Right.
So,
but 13's not even as big. Like, as the way that Final Fantasy opens up, like the overworld.
But 2 and 3 were planned, though. 13 Part 2 and Part 3 were a part of their release schedule. Like, those were confirmed before they were working on them. So it's kind of the same for Final Fantasy 7. Like, we know they're working on it.
Yeah.
They knew they're working on it.
I guess we'll see when they come out.
All right. So that does it. Final Fantasy VII Remake is the best game of the generation.
Or is it the Order 1886?
If you would like to say it is Final Fantasy, please thumbs up the video. If you'd like to say Order 1886, you should subscribe and hit the bell.
And comment below. I'm your host, Vega. You can follow me at WhatUpVega on all social media platforms and websites, and just kind of Google Vega. Yeah.
And I'm Chet. You can follow me on the website at hardmodegamers.com, and you can also look at Hard Mode Gamers. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter, even though I avoid Twitter. I'm on Parler for no reason, and I got an Instagram, also for no reason. So follow those for more interesting gaming news. Talk to you later, though.
Peace out.
Peace.